The last time I had the dream, I was walking down the school hallway. And then I see Butters, and he's like, "Hey, Eric, you want to see what my mom packed me for lunch?" And that's when I start to notice that something's wrong. Everyone I cared about has been systematically replaced. And finally, I want to scream, and I'm like, why are they replacing every single character with someone who is diverse?
That is exactly what they're doing. And that is why we hate the diversity, equity, and inclusion casting and writing in movies.
One major development going on now involves more to do with Rachel Ziegler and her attitude towards South Park Studios and Paramount after learning about what they are planning for their upcoming special called the DEI Special.
Snow White is the first American feature-length animated movie, 1937. It's one of the most beloved movies of all time. Even if everything worked perfectly, it would have been almost impossible for this movie to succeed because you're comparing it to one of the most beloved films of all time and a truly groundbreaking movie.
We all know Disney can't help itself when it comes to digging up classic animated films and giving them a modern twist. Sometimes it's fun to watch. Other times, it feels like they're taking a wrecking ball to our childhood. With the Snow White 2025 remake, though, the drama has shifted from the usual fan complaints to a full-on carnival of controversies, rumors, and corporate panic.
It was supposed to come out like a year and a half ago, and then we went after them so hard because of their variety of ridiculous sins that they actually went into full-scale reshoots on Snow White when we announced that we had a competitor.
It was the first animated film that had the kind of Disney magic that had depth, that had absolute, it was riveting, and it's based, of course, on a Brothers Grimm story.
The South Park episode that turned an already chaotic situation into a viral, meme-laden fiasco. If there's one show that can smell industry blood in the water, it's South Park. For ages, they've roasted everything and everyone, from major religions to biggest-name celebrities. But this time, they went straight for the jugular of Disney's new Snow White project, specifically focusing on Rachel Ziegler's outspoken attitude and the studio's so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. With the subtlety of a sledgehammer, they unleashed a parody that depicted an over-the-top version of Rachel raging about how the original 1937 film was outdated, while fictional Disney execs scrambled to salvage what was left of their dignity.
And this started with the movie star Rachel Ziegler, who I believe would be categorized as a loudmouth dope.
As an actor, you don't get to dictate anything. You don't get to dictate if a film actually happens. You don't get to dictate when it is shot, how it is shot, if you can ever speak about it to the public. You are simply just there to show up and say your lines and look the way they want you to look.
The internet had a field day. Clips of the parody shot around social media at warp speed. Fans and haters alike dissected every frame, comparing South Park's animated jabs to Rachel's actual interviews. It was almost too perfect. In one fell swoop, the cartoon hammered home all the talking points people had been grumbling about: that Disney was pushing a woke agenda, that Rachel disrespected the original movie, and that the entire project was basically one big PR nightmare waiting to happen. Judging by how quickly the clips went viral, South Park basically fed the drama a high-dose energy drink.
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely, when it got announced,
he wasn't a stalker, by the way.
Thing that was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry.
Behind the scenes, rumor has it that Rachel was fuming. She supposedly felt the show trivialized serious discussions about modernizing classic fairy tales. One can only imagine Disney's panicked hush-hush. Don't respond, don't engage, or the flames get bigger. The word on the street says they forbade her from clapping back publicly. Probably smart, because you don't poke the bear when that bear is South Park. The show's entire modus operandi is dragging people who can't resist hitting back.
Our rights are on the line, folks.
Bitch! The right to buy Cosby sweaters?
Come on.
That's the face of a serial killer.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
So how did we even get to this point, where Disney's Snow White remake became a comedic piñata? Much of it traces back to Rachel Ziegler's media appearances. Rather than simply saying, "I'm honored to be part of such a timeless story," she called the original storyline outdated, implied that Snow White's relationship dynamic was problematic, and made it crystal clear she wanted a 21st century spin. Now, it's not inherently wrong for an actress to push a fresh angle, but slamming the beloved 1937 film that started the entire Disney empire, that's basically sacrilege to legions of fans who grew up adoring the classic.
It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White.
That laugh.
That is
not going to be saved by
You
the
wrote
prince.
it?
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
God forbid a woman dream about true love. We're all just sitting around here, maybe I could be president one day. I hate men, I just want to be president. That screams Disney princess. Oh my God, I'm literally getting enraged. Once again, I feel like I'm back in 2022.
Twitter blew up with accusations that she was insulting everyone's childhood. People pulled out the "if you hate the original, why are you in the remake?" Instead of toning down the rhetoric, Rachel doubled down in follow-up interviews. Some saw her as gutsy, a strong voice challenging old-fashioned tropes. Others saw her as a ticking time bomb for any marketing campaign.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
Yeah, the entire film's about a love story. It's about a love story because that's what the point of the film is. And I'm sorry that chivalry in a man pursuing you is now deemed as stalking, which now it's kind of making sense why men are opting out of the dating scene.
Things took a turn for the truly bizarre when co-star Gal Gadot entered the mix as the evil queen. You'd think these two would join forces to hype up the film, or at least fake it for the cameras. Instead, the press noticed they barely spoke at certain events, avoided each other's eye lines, and seemed distant. The obvious speculation, a behind-the-scenes feud. Maybe Rachel thought Gal was overshadowing her. Maybe Gal saw Rachel as a PR liability. Who knows? The effect was the same. A swirl of new headlines about tension on set.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. I watched it for the first time in probably 17 years.
On the original production, I was scared of it. Oh, it was so weird. It was a stalker. Like, I feel like if you are taking on the most iconic Disney role ever, genuinely, like this was the most prolific Disney film, I feel like you should kind of have some sort of reverence for the original production.
Meanwhile, Disney higher-ups found themselves juggling a public relations nightmare. They'd already taken hits from other underperforming remakes, plus controversies in their Marvel and streaming arms. Snow White was supposed to be a slam dunk, capitalizing on nostalgia while showcasing a forward-thinking princess. Instead, it morphed into an open wound that South Park gleefully rubbed salt into. From a corporate standpoint, that's the worst scenario imaginable. Did they pivot and throw more money at reshoots? Did they muzzle Rachel entirely? Did they give Gal more lines to shift focus from the meltdown? Nobody was sure.
In addition to that, there was already an uproar about her being cast as Snow White because she is not Caucasian. She is a Latina. She is half Colombian. And so people were like, why were you cast in the first place? We just had a black Little Mermaid. Now we're having a Latina Snow White, and she is literally called Snow White. This doesn't make sense.
Then the real speculation started. Disney canceled press spots featuring Rachel, pulled her from talk shows, and either postponed or outright killed scheduled promotional events. The official reason? Scheduling conflicts. Right, because the biggest star of a new Disney tentpole just randomly can't make it. Fans and pundits read between the lines, suspecting the studio wanted to keep Rachel away from microphones at all costs. One more slip-up, one more viral misquote, and you've basically handed critics the perfect reason to not buy a ticket. Amid all this, South Park dropping their comedic hammer felt inevitable, especially when rumors surfaced about the show's upcoming DEI special. The timing was golden. They saw a controversy brimming with comedic potential, and they pounced. The resulting episode took everything people were already mocking: the Save Society angle, Rachel's perceived arrogance, the flailing Disney execs, and cranked it up to 11. If you happen to miss it, it's basically the perfect comedic snapshot of what fans have been screaming about for months. Some viewers actually sympathized with Disney. Turning a beloved fairy tale into a modern story is tricky enough without your star publicly dunking on the source material. Others cheered for Rachel's perspective, claiming it was high time we reevaluate old stereotypes. But the way South Park told it, there was no moral high ground to be found. The cartoon version of Rachel was a raging diva, and the fictional Disney bosses were clueless yes-men who couldn't control their own creation. Was it an exaggeration? Absolutely. But satire hits hard when it's close to the truth. The fiasco overshadowed everything else about the project. The new songs, the updated visuals, Gal's transformation into the evil queen, potential plot twists. None of that can compete with the ongoing meltdown, especially when a legendary satire show blasts the entire fiasco into the mainstream. Disney's brand took another beating at a time when they desperately needed a win. Are we supposed to believe they can unify the fan base behind this film when all people can talk about is a meltdown and a South Park roast? As for Rachel, the whispers say her relationship with the studio is now frosty at best. She feels they left her hanging when the internet started pummeling her. They probably feel she caused the pummeling by airing out hot takes that incense traditional Disney fans. There's also talk that her contract guaranteed a certain amount of promotion, appearances, interviews, maybe a performance or two. When those opportunities disappeared, rumor says her team considered legal steps, or at least threatened them. If that's even partially true, it spells a colossal fracture between a major star and the House of Mouse. Looking at the bigger picture, it's not just about one actress or one movie. It's about the risks of revamping beloved classics in a hyper-connected world, especially when the original is considered near sacred by multiple generations. You can't call it outdated and expect fans to shrug. Then there's the question of whether Disney miscalculated by leaning so heavily into modernizing beloved tales. If they keep repeating this pattern, stripping out core elements that made these classics appealing, could they alienate the very fans they rely on for their mega franchise paydays? Fans are torn. Some want new spins on old favorites. Others see it as disrespect. Usually, the debate lives in the corners of the internet until the movie actually drops. But thanks to South Park, the meltdown got the comedic broadside it needed to explode into mainstream conversation. Instead of wait and see, people are now shouting, train wreck, months before the film even has a chance to show off its final product. Is there a scenario in which this all resolves happily, like, say, a fairy tale ending? Maybe if the movie delivers a knock-your-socks-off performance from Gal, or if the updated storyline wows critics who can look past the controversies. Weirder things have happened. Bombshell behind-the-scenes drama has sometimes driven fans to the box office in droves. Curiosity might win out. People want to see if it's really as awful or as radical as the discourse suggests. Yet, with every new headline about Rachel's frustration, every rumor of behind-the-scenes scuffles, and now the unstoppable South Park parodies, it's looking more like a major black eye for the studio. Disney can't respond without seeming defensive, Rachel can't talk without stoking more fires, and the fandom is caught between a nostalgic love for the original and a creeping suspicion this remake is about as charming as a root canal. In the end, South Park might have done what it does best, shining a harsh light on a situation that was already unraveling, forcing everyone to acknowledge how ridiculous it looks. The show took all the drama swirling around Snow White 2025, condensed it into a savage 22 minutes, and slapped a massive neon sign on it that reads, "Look at this mess." For those hoping Disney would quietly patch up the PR leaks and sail to a billion-dollar box office, that dream is probably gone. The meltdown is too loud, too viral, and too controversial. For better or worse, the Snow White remake will forever be tied to Rachel Ziegler's comments, the rumored tension with Gal, the canceled interviews, and a South Park takedown that hit the bullseye. If nothing else, the saga proves one thing. No matter how gigantic a studio you are, no matter how time-tested your fairy tale might be, you're not safe from a swift comedic gut punch once fans, and South Park, decide you've crossed the line. For now, the only question left is if Snow White 2025 will manage to rise above the wreckage or become a permanent reminder that sometimes the best way to preserve a classic is simply to leave it alone.